This video was sponsored by HD Piano. This is John Lennon's Imagine, a truly iconic piano part, instantly recognisable, something that so many piano players have learned to play. For me, it was one of the very first things I learned. But for something so instantly recognisable, interestingly, sometimes when we hear it, it sounds different. It sounds like this. You see what I did differently there? I'm adding that D at the top. Now, for years, I had never heard this D note in the Imagine piano part. The first time it was ever brought to my attention is when looking at the piano tutorial for Imagine on HD Piano, and it included this D note there. So this got me thinking, and I looked through at all of the published sheet music you can buy for Imagine, and sure enough, they've included it there as well. So I thought, am I being gaslit here or something? So I went back and listened to the original recording of Imagine, and sure enough, if you listen really closely, sometimes you can hear a D, a sort of ghostly D note in this moment. Have a listen, see what you think. No hell. If you can't hear it, this is the note we're listening out for. This is just an isolated D note. So try and remember the sound of that D and have another listen, see if you can hear it at the end of the little piano riff. So what's going on there? When I first saw this D on the HD Piano tutorial, I thought, wait, have I been playing this song wrong my entire life? And maybe I have. It's really hard to work out what's going on here because it's not just a clear D, it's like a ghostly D, almost imaginary. So yeah, there is this really subtle D that happens sometimes on the piano riff. I don't think it's quite prevalent enough really to include it in the notation personally, but it is weird that it's in there but not quite in there, like it's added on another layer, like an overdub. So I did a bit of research about how Imagine was recorded to see if we can work out why there's this faint ghostly D over the piano part. And thankfully there is actually footage from when Imagine was recorded. We can see here John performing the original Imagine piano part at his piano, and we can see clearly here that he doesn't play the note D on the riff. No need for greed or hunger. Now, this is the piano, this upright, this is the piano that they used to record Imagine, at least originally. They did try recording it on the big white grand piano that we see in the music video, but as we can see from this clip, they decided that the room was too echoey. No hell below us.
Yeah, right.
The problem was in that room.
Okay, let's go then.
Spread out like hell.
I wish they'd told us before.
So we know that John isn't playing the note D here when he performs it at the piano, but one possible source of the D is an overdub. We know that John was interested in having layers of piano overdubbed on top of each other, and in fact for a while they were experimenting with having two keyboard players play the piano at the same time. In these clips we can see session keyboard player Nicky Hopkins, who would play on other tracks on the Imagine album, playing keyboard at the same time as John. At one point they experimented with Nicky being on an electric keyboard, and at other times they experimented with John and Nicky both playing the same piano in different octaves. But we know that in the end, Nicky Hopkins didn't play on Imagine. They scrapped the idea, but they did still have an overdub on the piano. What they did in the end is had John overdub the piano, effectively double track the piano And we can hear that quite clearly on the recording because when the vocal comes in at the beginning of the verse, the piano suddenly goes into this wide stereo image. And what's happening in that moment, if you listen carefully, is a second piano performance is entering, a double track. Have a listen. This is most easily heard on headphones, by the way.
Imagine there's no heaven.
So did John hit the D note sometimes when he was doing this double track? Well, quite possibly, and that would help explain why it's a bit fainter in the mix, because it's not the primary piano performance happening, it's an extra layer. But there is one more layer to this story, one more layer to how the track was recorded. But just before we dive into that, I want to remind you that you can learn how to play Imagine at the piano right now, complete with Mysterious D Note, by using today's sponsor, HD Piano. All of the songs on HD Piano are laid out in really easy to understand tutorials, no notation required. And the first lesson of every song on the website is free, so you can check it out, see if you like it. If you're interested, do follow the links down below to check out HD Piano today. So as I mentioned before, there's one last part of the puzzle here, because even though the piano was originally recorded here in England, when they then went to New York, went to the record plant in New York to overdub the strings, they may have re-recorded the piano there as well. According to producer Jack Douglas, who worked at the record plant, they did re-record the piano because John wasn't happy with how it was sounding.
The only thing that is redone in New York is the piano and the vocal.
And the vocal.
On the Studio B Steinway.
Now, it's not clear whether they re-recorded all of the piano parts or if they just added extra overdubs, but perhaps it was at this point in the process where John threw in a couple of those D notes. John does mention in one of these earlier clips that sometimes he performs the riff slightly differently. So maybe the fact that we get this D just on a few occasions is John occasionally adding in a bit of variety. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm still not completely convinced there even is a D note on the recording. If it wasn't for these notations claiming that there is, then I wouldn't even think about it. It is kind of in there, but at the same time, it could just be a harmonic, an overtone. We're hearing this supposed D exactly when John hits the note G, and the second overtone of G is the note D, so you kind of have a bit of D in the note G, so it would make sense that we kind of hear D. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Can you even hear this D note there? And do you think it should really be included in the sheet music, you know, when people cover this song? Because really, if you do look at people performing covers of this song on YouTube or beyond, most of the time, if not all of the time, they're completely ignoring this D.